Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Back like cook crack after a well-deserved break. And I might have been on vacation, but the Washington Commanders were not. They did have an off day on Sunday. However, they practiced on Saturday. Ron Rivera gave a few of the veterans some time off, whether it was the entire day off or a lighter workload, which allowed some of the younger players to get more reps. Rivera said that he was not pleased with some of the efforts and some of the mental mistakes made by some of the young players, and he let them know about it after practice and also let them know about it during film study. So those younger guys that are getting opportunities need to be able to take advantage of those reps if they're looking to make an impact, whether that's to be able to make the football team outright or to be a guy that is here on the practice squad looking for an opportunity should one arise down the road. So guys got to start stepping up and taking a better care of some of these opportunities. You don't get a lot of them, especially in training camp. You know, when you're on the third string, when you're on that, back end of the 80-man, roster, 90-man roster, I think it's 90 right now, you gotta take advantage of every single rep. You're not getting a bunch of them. So when they give veterans opportunities to rest and everyone's kind of having to see their shift bumped up a bit, if you're a second team guy and the first team guy's getting a rest, you're now on the first team. The third string guy's now on the second team. You're getting more reps. You got to take advantage of it. Guys didn't do that necessarily in day 4 of training camp practice. He did mention one guy in particular, Curtis Hodges, the tight end, undrafted rookie out of Arizona State. This is a huge human being. This guy's like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 245 pounds or so. That's a guy that, Ron talked about him, being a quick study, learning from experience, making mistakes. Montez Sweat had beat him a couple of times in pass protection. Earlier in the afternoon or day, I should say, Sweat kind of told him what had went wrong, why he was able to beat him. He made some adjustments, came back the following day, and was able to, make some corrections and be a little bit better. So he's like talking about some of those things. This guy can catch the football. He's a huge target, as we know. So if he can clean up some of those things in the run game as a blocker in the pass protection department, maybe he'll have a shot. What I found interesting, I don't know if you guys saw the video that they put out of Ron Rivera being mic'd up, but in that clip, you actually see tight end Curtis Hodges being hemmed up by one of the coaches. Now, I don't know what coach that is because it did not look like Juan Castillo to me. It could have been. Juan could have lost some weight, could have cut his hair because, the last time I saw Juan Castillo, he looked a little bit differently. I don't think that was who that was. I think that might have been some other maybe a assistant tight ends coach or something along those lines. Whatever the case may be, he was trying to tell Curtis Hodges something. Hodges really didn't want to hear it. He was telling the coach, "Get off of me." And the coach really got into his chest, took his forearm, put it in his chest like, "Bro, stop trying to push me away and listen to what I'm saying to you." So if you want to check that out, go look at the Ron Rivera mic'd up segment that they put on the Washington Commanders YouTube channel. And go look at about the 1 minute, 15-second mark or so, and you'll see Curtis Hodges and the coach in the front, and the coach is giving him some work, and Hodges doesn't want any part of it, and the coach has to get in his chest like, "Hey, listen to me, man. All right, I don't care that you're mad." All right, so whatever the case may be, that's another young guy vying for a roster spot. It'll be interesting. Again, all of this is great. All of the conversations that we've had about the first 5 days of training camp, and we'll talk about day 5 as well today. All of those conversations are great, but the pads are going to come on tomorrow, which is when things really start to ramp up. That's and speaking of which, Ron talked about this in day number 5 after practice, and I'll elaborate once I get there. But he talked about positions that he wants to see in particular when the pads come on. We'll go and talk about that a little bit more when we get to day 5. I want to put a nice, neat bow, I should say, tidy bow on day 4. And Ron spoke about the return game. I don't think he gets asked enough questions in regards to kickoff and punt returner. I think there should be more questions being asked by the local media. I don't think they do a good enough job of filling us in on what's going on with that situation and who's getting reps. And I don't think there's enough questions lobbed at Ron Rivera to kind of see where his thought process is regarding the return game, because it's an important part of the game. It's going to take a roster spot. Whether they have a guy at the receiver position or cornerback position that they already like and is already going to make the team and he's going to double as a return man, or they're going to have to allocate a roster spot to a guy like they did last year with the DeAndre Carter. They allocated a roster spot to kickoff and punt return for DeAndre Carter. Yes, he doubled as a receiver, but his main job was to return punts and kickoffs. So are they going to do that again with Alex Erickson? Or are they going to allow someone to do that in addition to doing another job on the team, whether it be a kickoff return man that's a receiver or a corner? Generally, those are the two positions that usually handle kickoff return duties because they're usually the faster guys on the roster, and they're usually the most elusive, and they've got experience, some kind of background doing it in the past. That said, he said that it's going to be important that return man have a duality ability, meaning he can do both kickoffs and punt returns. They're not looking to have two different guys. Like once upon a time, Danny Johnson handled the punt return duties or kickoff return duties, and then they had a different return man back on punts. They're not looking to do that, anymore. They want the same guy handling both duties. That is something that he said, and he said we'll really start to gain a little clarity as to what direction we'll go in with the return man duties once we get into the preseason. And last year that was a big part of it. Remember, they were putting everybody under the sun back there. Steven Sims got reps. Dax Milne got reps. DeAndre Carter got reps. They put a lot of guys back there last year. Hell, even Jarrett Patterson got kickoff return reps, and they were also trying him at punts, if you remember, at practice at times. So we're going to start to see this thing ironed out a bit, and we're going to find out if they're going to, come to some kind of. So I've said this already, and until something happens that changes my mind, I think that the answer is going to ultimately be Alex Erickson. But we will see if he wins the job outright or not. He did say that Jahan Dotson is a guy that will only probably be back there under emergency situations because he's too big of a part of the offense to stay. It's similar to Terry McLaurin. Remember when we drafted Terry, and the prevailing thought was, oh, Terry's a dominant special teams player, and they went to the special teams coach, and he's like, I was excited when we drafted him, and very quickly they told me, hey, you're not getting Terry. So I think that's kind of how it's going to be with Jahan. Hey, he's really talented. You could put him back there if you want, a la Deshaun Jackson early in his career. But that's not what they're looking to do. They're looking to take that off his plate. They're not looking to put him in harm's way. They'll let someone else do that. And I don't think any of us have any problems with that whatsoever. He's going to be such a huge part of the offense moving forward. So you move on to day 5 of camp, which was Sunday or Monday, excuse me. They had Sunday off. And this was the last unpadded practice. They're going to have padded practices moving forward to get themselves prepared for the preseason and then moving forward towards the regular season. And one of the biggest topics that I thought came out of the press conferences and some of the practice content was the fact that Curtis Samuel continues to be a topic of discussion. And, we heard about the Curtis Samuel plan, if you will. Last week, Samuel talked about, first of all, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. He talked about the plan that he was on. And, when he first got back from, the break and they reported for camp, he was out there. But everything was always on a limited basis. He's been scaled back quite a bit. He's no longer doing any team activities. Everything is off to the side. And so he showed up to camp. I didn't know this. And for those of you out there that have been saying this guy can't stay healthy, I know you're going to be pouncing all over this. I'm still going to remain optimistic. But again, This is something worth noting, and it's something to keep an eye on because I was really dismissive, and I'm still dismissive, but not to the extent that I was earlier when camp first got underway, and that's Curtis Samuel and his injury situation and his status. Again, it's early in camp. They're trying to be very precautious with him, which they should. Ron said the ultimate goal is to have him ready for week one. They could care less about camp practices nor the preseason. It's the same shit he said last year because he said, hey, we know Curtis. We know what he's capable of. So we really don't need to see him in the preseason or in camp. And that's fine. But in order to build that rapport, in order to get him in game shape, and this is what Ron said, this is something he did not say last year. Okay, but he's saying it this year is that, you know, it's one thing to be in shape. It's one thing to be working out, you know, in Florida or somewhere trying to, you know, get into playing shape, but you can't replicate being in football shape. You can't replicate having pads on with the helmet and getting hit. These are things that you just can't replicate. A defender comes, you got to stop on a dime and cut it back. That's something you can't replicate in practice, all the while having a helmet and pads on. Guys generally don't train, okay, in the off season with helmet and full pads on, okay? They're usually just out training, you know, normally without anything on. And so it's totally different when you've got full gear on. It's totally different when there's something at stake. It's totally different when you've actually got guys trying to hit you. And so you can't replicate that. As much as you can try, as hard as you may want to try and duplicate that, you can't. And so Ron's like, he's got to get into football shape, you know, and it's tough because we don't want him to hurt himself or re-aggravate anything. He showed up, and this is what I didn't know. He showed up with back soreness and hamstring tightness to camp. So that's problematic. And so they're trying to work through all of the things. He said, Ron was very adamant. This has nothing to do with the groin that was the source of the issue for him missing as many games as he did last year. This has nothing to do with that. This is simply a hamstring injury that has worked its way up to his back, and they're trying to kind of keep him on this pitch count, if you will, in terms of wanting him to be active, but not wanting him to be too active. Again, something to keep an eye on. I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. I'm not too concerned right now, but if we're having this same conversation come late August into September, now it's a huge problem. So it's August 1st. I'm not tripping. Neither should you, but definitely should be wary of the situation without a doubt. All right. Trey Turner injured his quad last week. We talked about that. Wes Schweitzer was taking his reps with the first team offensive line. No real update from Ron in terms of when he'll be back, but he said, look, it's a quad. He's working his way through. Same thing he said about Curtis Samuel. He's a veteran. We know what he's capable of, so we're not really that concerned. But again, when you're talking about the offensive line, 5 guys that need to be working as one, need to be in unison with one another, you'd like to see them on the field in practice, getting the reps that will help them be in lockstep with one another come game day. So it is a bit concerning that he's not out there, especially when you're just getting Chase Roullier back and they're still working him in. Speaking of which, Chase Roullier was in 9-on-9 drills, so he's starting to work his way back into the team drills, which is a great sign. And once he continues to ramp it up, next thing you'll know, he'll be in those 11-on-11 drills, and all of a sudden, we'll be talking about Chase Roullier being a fixture back at the center position. So that is great news that they're integrating him back into the team drills. Good to see 73 back on the field. Ron was asked about pads. They go on tomorrow, as I said. So we're going to start really hearing about standouts in camp now, because it's one thing, like to me, the start of training camp begins when the pads go on, because what they've essentially been doing for me is they've been doing glorified OTAs and minicamp practices, okay? When the pads go on, that's when you get into the true dog days of summer and training camp. This is when guys actually have an opportunity to separate themselves, because all that other stuff isn't really football. No one's getting hit. There's no threat of getting hit. That's not football, okay? This is football. When you put the pads on, that's football. So Now things are going to start to heat up. And Ron said in particular, and obviously he wants to see the entire team. He wants to see all the positions, the offensive line, the defensive line. But I think he was very interested and intrigued by a handful of positions, mainly tight end, safety, and linebacker are the positions he singled out as positions he'll be focused in on. Tight end, because of the fact that there's no Logan Thomas, you're going to need guys to step up. And with John Bates also being out, don't forget, Bates is out. Ron didn't give us a real update when he was asked about Bates. He was like, hey, he's working through it. He didn't even say what he was working through, but he said he's working through it, and it is what it is. So in Logan Thomas's and now John Bates's absence, you had a bunch of young dudes, like literally. Cole Turner's a rookie. I talked about Hodges. That's another rookie. All of these guys are young. We don't have many veterans at the tight end position to speak of. And so that's a position definitely worth keeping an eye on. It almost is to the point where if Bates's situation lingers for a bit, you may have to go out here and sign a veteran tight end. Okay? It could get a little dicey at the tight end position. That's something to keep an eye on for sure. Linebacker, obviously, there are a lot of young players at the linebacker position. Again, similar to the tight end position. The only difference is the guys that we're counting on this year, they're healthy, but it's still a young group. After Cole Turner, who serves as the linebacker position's Logan Thomas, all right, after him, you got a second-year linebacker, same thing like at the tight end position with John Bates, who's a second-year tight end, second-year linebacker in Jamin Davis, and then everybody else is pretty much young. I mean, you've got some guys with some experience, but they don't really want to put those guys in the game, necessarily. Khalil Hudson and some of those guys, I don't think they're really looking to give those guys an opportunity. There's some young guys that they're intrigued by that they want to see what they're going to be able to do when they're thrown in the mix, but it's another one of those positions where until the pads go on, you really aren't quite sure what you're going to get. And then safety, obviously, with Percy Butler and Derek Force and some of these guys that they've been really high on during the offseason, again, safety is one of those positions you need to see what they're going to do with the pads on. When a guy's coming over the middle, where their eyes are, how they recover, how they come down and feel as a run defender, all of these things they're intrigued by with these young safeties. So, it should be fun watching camp develop over the next few days as these pads go on and the contact starts and you start to see guys separate themselves. You kind of see some other guys kind of falling by the wayside as well because you got some guys that are standouts without pads, and then you put the pads on and they're not the same player. So, again, this is football. When the pads go on, that's when the real football takes place. The defense was dominant yet again. Again, don't be alarmed. This is what happens when you're early in camp. The defense is usually ahead of the offense, especially when your starting quarterback just got here. He's still learning the nuances of a brand new offense. So there are going to be mistakes. They're working out the kinks. The best receiver on the team wasn't here throughout OTAs and at the end of minicamp. So there's still a lot of kinks being worked out, trying to get on the same page from a quarterback, wide receiver perspective on where does this guy like the ball, how does he adjust to this throw, this, that, and the third. So Wentz, a lot of times when he's missed this offseason, it's been high. That's been really the MO of his career. When he's missed high. He's done that a lot in camp. And so there's still a bit of back and forth between he and the receivers trying to figure out what's a good where are the pockets that we can get the football to each guy? Where are they most comfortable with the ball being thrown? How does he run his routes? How does he come out of his breaks? When should that ball be there? This is Carson's throwing it here. I got to be there. These are the things you work out in camp. So, still early in the process, working out some of these glitches, but the defense clearly ahead of the offense as of right now. We heard from Ron Rivera, talked about some of the things he spoke of. We heard from Cam Curl. Nothing really there of substance from Cam Curl. Looking for a big season from him. And then we heard from Antonio Gibson. I got a couple of nuggets from him. One, he is in tremendous shape. I mean, he looks really good. When you see him talking at the podium, he looks body type wise just different. Okay, so he looks to be in tremendous shape. He talked about his hamstring. He talked about the hamstring when he first got to camp. He said, I think I kind of did that. I didn't hydrate properly. I put myself in a compromising position, and it wasn't major. It was a minor tweak, but it was a tweak nonetheless. Maybe it was avoidable, but I feel so much better now. Went over, we have put together a plan, worked me back slowly, and now here I am. He was out in the red zone drills today, caught a slant for a touchdown in front of Kendall Fuller, also had a run outside to get into the end zone. So he had a very productive day as they start to work him back into the team drills. So it was good to hear that from him. And he also talked about pass protection. He said, look, I am so much more comfortable in pass pro now than I was, obviously, as a rookie. He's like, my head was spinning as a rookie. I couldn't tell you what the hell I was out there doing. He says, now, I feel so much more comfortable. I can see when they're trying to disguise blitzes. I can disguise, whether I'm staying in the block or if I'm getting out as an eligible. He says, so there's so many different wrinkles and nuances to it, and I am prepared for all of them. So I feel so much better about pass protection now than I ever have. So that's good to know. We heard about Brian Robinson and his ability to catch the football. So if Antonio Gibson really wants to stave him off, one of the ways he's going to have to be able to do that, and that's something that rookies usually, not all rookies, but most of them come into the league and they're lagging behind, is in the pass protection department. So if you want to keep a guy like him off the field, obviously J.D. McKissick is huge on third downs for us, and he'll be the guy probably taking the bulk of those reps. However, if you want to continue to keep a guy like Brian Robinson at bay, and another way to distance yourself from him is in pass protection. They're not going to put a young guy on the field often if he cannot pass protect. Whereas if you know how to do it, if you've been in the league long enough and you understand those protections, you'll be in a better position to be able to be on the field. And so I think that's another way that Antonio Gibson will be able to separate himself, keep distance between he and Brian Robinson, and keep the young fella off the field for a ton of snaps. I'm not saying Brian Robinson won't play and he's not going to get the football and not have opportunities. I still think this is Antonio Gibson's job at the running back position, and I think they're still going to use him as their bell cow as they have in the past, and I expect a huge season from Gibson should he be able to stay healthy. So that in essence was day number 4 and 5 of camp. Lots to get to in terms of the pads now coming up this week. I'm really excited about the pads going on. You'll learn more about the team. Ryan Kerrigan is out there essentially gauging his interest on becoming a coach in the league. Obviously, he had his retirement presser over the weekend, and he asked Rivera and the staff, could he come out, kind of gauge his interest to see if this is something he wants to do, because it's a grind being a coach, and not everybody's built for that. And Rivera even said himself, I told Ryan, look, it took me a year and a half after I retired as a player to figure out if I really wanted to get into this thing as a coach, because it's a lot. But Ryan, he might have already made up his mind, figured some things out. So he wants to see what it actually feels like to be out there. So he's going to be around a bit, working with the defensive line, which isn't the worst thing in the world. And also, I don't know if you guys watched the draft video. They put out a behind the scenes look at the draft war room. And it's not long. It's like maybe 4 minutes long or so. But remember I told you guys I had some intel inside the room that Washington picked up the phone, called Green Bay, and was interested in trading back yet again, even after acquiring and moving back to 16 with the Saints. They were interested in moving back again with Green Bay. And so you saw that on the video. So it turns out the intel that I was given was spot on. So it's always fun watching those draft war room videos to see how things are going. So hectic on draft day. You see Marty Herney in there working, through all of his notebooks with the different picks and what they should do. And then you see Martin Mayhew on 2 different phones, just so helter-skelter in there, man. It's just crazy on that draft day how things move so quickly, and how many teams you're in contact with looking to move back, if you're trying to move back, if you're trying to move up, things of that nature. We were never looking to move up, only looking to move back. We contacted Philadelphia. We contacted New Orleans. We contacted Green Bay. We were in constant communication with so many teams looking to move backwards. Finally, the Saints thing came through. Obviously, listening to some of the conversations, the Packers weren't willing to give up enough draft capital. They were only looking to part with a one pick, and the Saints were willing to move, two picks, the third and the fourth that we ultimately got from them. Flipped one of those fourths with Carolina and picked up the additional fifth round pick, and also I believe we picked up a sixth too, if I'm not mistaken. So put us in that position to get Cole Turner and Sam Howell in that fifth round. So, they did some damage. They got their guy, Jahan Dotson, and it seems to be working well for them right now. But anyway, I digress. We'll be back each and every single day talking about camp, going through what happened during the course of the day, what was said after the practice by the coaches and players, and really keeping, you guys abreast of everything that's going on with the Commanders. And hopefully we're able to stay healthy. As you can see around the league, guys are, getting hurt. Guys are being carted off the field. We'll keep our fingers crossed that we are able to keep the injury reaper away. Hopefully he stays out. He's been on the West Coast, and hopefully he stays out there. But we've had some minor nicks and bruises, nothing really major to talk about, and we would like it to stay exactly that way. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders camp coverage. You know what it is. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Commanders. Until next time, you guys, take care, post up, and take command. You guys have a good one. See you next time.
LouieTeeNetwork.